I want you to do something for me today with this video. I want you to think about who in your life is the most impressive communicator that you know, and who do you admire more than anybody else. It can be somebody famous or somebody who you are involved with. It can be your mother, it can be a former president, it can be your boss, your child. Who is the most influential and the very best communicator you know? Because that's who we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the people in your life who have different communication styles. Mercury and the sign in which you have Mercury in your chart is really important. But why is it important? And this is going to be different than most Mercury videos that you have watched, the astrological meanings and definitions of Mercury. And I hope so much that you have watched my entire Mercury playlist. I'm going to talk about Mercury through all 12 signs, but I don't want you to just watch your own Mercury sign. I want you to think about the people in the world that are phenomenal communicators, somebody who you wish you could be like, and then I want you to go look up their Mercury. Then I want you to watch this video and watch me talk about or define what it means to have Mercury in that sign or in those signs. It could really have a giant impact, not only on you, but on your understanding of the power of astrology. Because here's the deal. If I'm a fascinating person, but I have no way to get that fascinating part of me out because I can't express myself, then I'm sort of trapped within myself, right? And some signs struggle with communicating more so than others. And what if you could be a catalyst for helping a person understand themselves better just by understanding Mercury through the signs? And why does somebody just bore the living daylights out of you, right? Well, watch this video and you will find out. I'm going to tell you all the secrets and all the truths of all 12 signs in Mercury, and it's going to be fascinating. You know, a lot of people ask me, do I have a soulmate connection with this person? And they want me to look at their Mars or their Venus. And honestly, I really wonder and I question why more astrologers don't look at the two Mercuries inside the two different natal charts. Because if you have Mercury in Aquarius and your partner has Mercury in Taurus, oh my God, how are you guys going to ever communicate with one another, especially if you don't understand why they speak and why they think like they do? So this video is going to help you so much in the art and in the arena of understanding why and how people communicate the way they do. So let's dive in. Mercury is so important in your chart because it shows you what you love to think about, what turns on your mind, and how you speak and how you use your voice, how your mind works, how you communicate, how you express yourself, how you learn and how you teach, and how you actually grow that big brain of yours. What nourishes your mind, right? So right now you're actually hearing my Mercury. Yeah, Mercury is going to show you your anxiety levels. It's going to show you your lungs and your breathing. Do you suffer from asthma? That is also your Mercury. It's going to show us your nervous system responses and sort of your verbal temperament. And it's also going to reveal your psychological issues, your speech impediments, if you have ADD, and any ailments that you might have to the hands, the arms, and the shoulders. So I really do recommend that you watch all the signs, because it's not just important to know who you are, it's also important to know who you are not and what you are not, and how other people hear you and receive you. And if I can communicate more effectively, basically if I can manipulate my Mercury, I can be more effective and successful in my relationships and in my work. I can be more self-assured that what I am trying to say and what is really inside of me can be expressed effectively. So let's talk about Mercury in Aries. Mercury in Aries, you know, these people love passionate, feisty discussions, and they are not offended by kind of a hard-hitting, competitive, good argument. They require quick thinking. They get bored with you really, really fast. And they're good at giving spontaneous thoughts and opinions and thinking fast on their feet. They talk fast, they think fast, and they solve problems really, really fast. They have a very quick response time, and they are very direct, articulate. They're super open. They're honest. They're the ones that say, yeah, ask me anything. I'm an open book. Ask me anything. They hate lying, and they hate cheating because they don't want to have to remember all their lies. And by the way, they're really bad at it. They are probably the worst liars of the zodiac. They catch themselves in a fib, and then they can't remember it. And then they're like, oh shit, actually that wasn't really true. They also can confess if they fibbed or lied, or if they don't really know. Like, I don't really know. I'm not an expert on that, but what my opinion is, I find talking to a Mercury in Aries person very refreshing. They are very bottom line. They are very direct. They usually take a dominant position in the conversation, and they like to dominate. They usually land louder, stronger, more opinion than the other person in the dialogue. And they have sort of a desire to lead the conversation. And while they can be a good listener, I think they are a better talker than listener, just to be honest. And they are a good listener, especially if they are a Taurus or a Pisces with Mercury in Aries. But most Aries prefer just making their point and talking more than listening, just to be very honest about it. I think Eddie Murphy is a great example of Mercury in Aries. He is just fast. He's fun to listen to. Also, Mercury in Aries are very entertaining, and they're funny because they just tell you the cold, hard, ugly truth. I think Mercury in Aries is kind of like the person from New Jersey. It's like, hey, what you talking about? It's like the New Yorker. It's just like, don't beat around the bush. I don't have time to say thanks and how you doing and how's your family and how's your life. No, just give me some pizza. Yeah, extra cheese. Thanks. See ya. They're just kind of fun. And they also have like super strong opinions. They are like committed to their preferences and their opinions and their beliefs and their thoughts. Now, on the shadow side, they can have real sarcasm for humor, and they can be cynical and sarcastic. And at times, I will also say they can be really blunt and too direct, and their words can cut more than they intended to. They don't really mean to hurt your feelings. They're just so sorry if you can't handle the truth. They probably cannot handle like an entitled mentality. They can deal with a lot, and they have really thick skin, and they don't want you to beat around the bush. They think everybody thinks like this, and we don't. And truth, this is like the least sensitive communication sign. So they usually have to learn how to stop, pause, and think, to slow down their minds enough to really be thoughtful around your overly sensitive feelings. And they don't have a lot of patience for really super sensitive people. They don't really want to learn a new way to communicate. It's like, God, I got to remember they and them, and I just want to say he and she. I don't want a bunch of new stuff to learn. And on the shadow side, they can kind of come across as very impatient, very opinionated, kind of thoughtless, kind of gruff and rough around the edges. And they can kind of feel like a verbal slap across your face, or like a cold shower. They kind of have a style that just wakes you up. They can be loud, and at their worst, they can be really self-focused and selfish. They like to think about their passions, their adventures, their next competition, how to win at the game of life and love, how to level up, how to play bigger, how to expand their worlds. And they know their preferences. They absolutely know what they want, what they like, what they don't like, and they don't like playing games. And they are usually really invigorating to listen to. Okay. Mercury in Taurus, very interesting. Johnny Depp has this placement, even though he is a Gemini. And you can see him in almost everything he does. There is a slow calculatedness. And if you did see the trial, or if you saw him on the stand, he is extraordinarily methodical, poetic, and slow. Remember, Venus rules this sign, so there is something quite beautiful, usually beautiful sounding about this particular voice. This is a very down-to-earth placement. And this, I would say, is like the patient, the methodical listener. They pride themselves on their stable, common sense. And these communicators are slower to find their words. They're usually looking for the the right word, looking for the word that will invoke the feeling or the thought that they want to communicate. And so you need to be a little bit patient listening to these people. They speak their words with great deliberation, and they like to thoroughly evaluate their thoughts in their heads before they speak their minds. And they're logical, they're focused, and they are quite perceptive. These communicators, I would say, are realists. They like to think about how to earn money, how to make it or investment. They like to think about security, building more of it in the world and being secure. They like thinking about food, making it, eating it, getting it, presenting it. They like thinking about nature. They like learning and thinking and talking about what creates more comfort and peace and harmony in my world, in my life, and in the world at large. They oftentimes, these people will chase comfort, being comfortable, and they put their time into creating comfort for themselves and for others. They don't like uncomfortable conversations. They usually have very good boundaries. It's very rare for a Taurus to just be nosy and probe into all of your dirty details. They're not gossips like that. They don't really want to waste their time with that. That's uncomfortable for them. These people often think about the material world, the concrete world, and how to navigate through it. Like, if you can touch it, let's talk about it. And they usually have a practical, intelligent, mastering pragmatics more than the abstract thought. They like the tried and true concepts, and they learn by trial and error. They are nostalgic, and they are loyal to their beliefs and their opinions. And they don't usually change up their stories or their minds very easily. They're kind of stubborn. They're not usually in favor of versatility. They figure out what works, and they stick with that thing that works, that methodology, that style, and they stick with it over and over and over. And on the shadow side, they can be like fairly hard to deal with because they are so stubbornly fixed in their opinions that they become kind of narrow-minded and dogmatic and immovable. Imagine trying to push a bull, right? Like, push a bull into the barn. Like, come on, let's go into the barn. No. No, no, no. It can be a really hard job trying to get a Taurus to change their mind. Yeah. Have you ever tried to get a Taurus to change their mind? So you need to know if your partner has a Taurus and Mercury, because if you want them to change, you're going to have to start drip, 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 like Chinese water torture, months in advance, convincing them through pragmatic details on why it is going to benefit them and be more comfortable for them to change. That's how you convince a Taurus. Because at their very worst, they are super closed off to new ideas or thoughts. And quite frankly, they don't want to change their mind. They don't. So let's talk about when Mercury is in Gemini. This is in its dignity, and Mercury loves being in Gemini because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So this makes for very smart, quick thinkers. These people are, I would say, the master communicators, and they have a gift for gab. They can talk about anything, anywhere, anytime. Yeah. If you want to kill a Mercury in Gemini, tell them that the rule is they're not allowed to talk for 1 hour. They can't do it. Joan Rivers, actually, I don't know if you guys know her, but she's probably like the first female comedian in the United States that really hit it big and became quite famous. And she had a very acerbic wit, and she was quite fast on her feet. Marilyn Monroe also has this placement, and she was also known to be very witty, and she played a dumb blonde, but that was just her persona. She was actually quite intelligent and quite witty. You know, this is the smart, quick, fast on your feet thinker. These people are master communicators, as I said, and they are fantastic at arguing data points spontaneously. They're great debaters. They're usually very highly intelligent people. Meryl Streep also has this, and they value knowledge. They value learning. These people can be very quick-witted, very funny. They can do deadpan humor, and they know how to play ping pong with words, with people, so they can bounce ideas back and forth. They're very invigorating and exhilarating. They just don't need a lot of time to figure out their thoughts or what to say. They usually can keep the conversation flowing, even if you're not that great of a communicator. And some of these people have photographic memories. I'll say that they're really good with puns. They're really good with telling jokes, remembering jokes, and they're really good at double entendres, double meanings. When the person who was giving Marilyn Monroe her interview and they asked her, "What's your favorite thing to wear to bed?" and she said, "Chanel No. 5. It's like, and then somebody said to her, so what do you have on when you go to bed? And she said, the radio. She's just so funny. And it's just kind of hilarious. So like double entendres, and they're good at memorizing details. And these people are so open-minded. I think this is the most open-minded person of the zodiac. And they're very objective. They make great negotiators and mediators because they can be a bridge between two sides. They can see both sides usually. And they're very flexible, very nimble, very versatile. And these people are super curious about life and people, and they're multifaceted. They can deal with complex ideas. They have this quick intellect, and they're very knowledgeable, a super sharp mind, and they're kind of like newscaster articulate, right? They usually have really good enunciation, and they value the voice, and they have this bright energy, the snap, crackle, pop about them. A lot of these people with Mercury and Gemini are brilliant. So on the shadow side, these like cool cats can be so overly talkative, they can drive you nuts. So yeah. And especially if they're like Gemini rising with Mercury and Gemini, these people will not shut up. And they won't take a breath. They don't breathe in between their words, and they can just exhaust you, throwing so much conversation at you. It's like, they're just very high strung, very talkative. They can also be super distracted and detached from a depth of emotion or wanting even a depth of conversation. They're great at bite-sized pieces, sometimes, and their communication style can just be so, blazing saddles that you feel like there's a lack of emotional connection or even connection. It's like they don't always feel their words, even if they're just saying their words. At their very worst, they can seem vacant and talking out of both sides of their mouths. They can be duplicitous. They can stab you in the back. They can be too rash, and they can flip-flop their opinions. They also can, on their shadow side, they can have a tendency, not everybody, they can have a tendency to fib very easily. And they over-process everything, exhausting even themselves. Okay, so Mercury in Cancer. This is a very unique style of communication. This is the imaginary, intuitive thinker. These people need to express their feelings, and they need to trust in order to be able to do that. These are the good listeners of the zodiac, and these people are better listeners than talkers, and they're super sensitive to other people's needs. And they do get overwhelmed, though, with other people's energy and problems, so they need a cocoon to sort of recharge their batteries. These people, when they're well developed, they sort of have a poetry in their soul, and they are very empathetic speakers and listeners, so they'll follow your pace. They don't want to overshadow you, but they also don't want to be under. They kind of like are your match. They'll match, they'll intuitively dance with you. You sort of feel like you're doing the tango when you're talking to these people, and they make you feel comfortable. It's like they can move you, they can stir you, and everybody can be really emotionally captivated by their stories because their stories have a lot of emotion in them. They're poetic. And so when they're telling a story, it's like everybody is just dead silent, wanting to hold their breath until we get to the end. I think having Mercury in Cancer can be extraordinarily powerful because it can be deeply moving. I'll just tell you right now, Chris Evans, Captain America, who doesn't love him in the Marvel movie, has this placement, and he just kind of stirs me. And also Nicole Kidman has this, and think about how all her characters just evoke so much emotion, sometimes without even speaking. Also, Princess Diana, she was a very empathetic communicator and very soft-spoken, but it's like, You always held your breath when she was saying something because you wanted to know what she was feeling. And you can see the emotions in those three communicators. I want you to think of like an emotional TED talker, somebody who just moves you, right? Where you can feel it in your stomach. That's probably a Mercury and Cancer person. Do you know somebody with this placement, and are they inspiring? Do they move you? It's like these people can create captivation, and it's because they know how to connect into their listener, and they do that very intuitively. You feel very cared about also when a Cancer and Mercury is listening to you or talking to you. They like to talk to you about you. They like to understand what motivates you, what benefits you. They are usually very thoughtful and careful and sensitive. I know a Mercury in Cancer person. It was my very best friend when I was growing up, and sadly he's no longer alive. But he was so sensitive, and he had a hard time really being objective because his emotions were so big that he became, and this is what can happen when you're an unhealthy or undeveloped Mercury in Cancer, which sadly he was, they get consumed by their own feelings that they spin it into sort of a fairy tale web of what they want to be true, that they actually live and breathe as if that thing that they want to be true is true, even when it's not true. And they get devastated, and they get moody, and they get heartbroken very easily when their wants and their wishes don't come true. And so these people are moody. They can have giant mood swings based on their own feelings. They can become so consumed by their own feelings that you, beautiful you, don't know what you're going to get. They can be really up and down, even more so than a Gemini. They also can get their feelings hurt at boo, like a Mercury in Cancer with a Mercury in Aries. Does anybody have this combination? Because this is really harsh. I mean, this would be really, really hard on the Cancer person. Also, the Aries person would just get so exasperated with the level of sensitivity inside the Mercury and Cancer person. They have a very hard time with just the straight up truth. They have a deep, deep fear of rejection, and they can be crushed quite easily. Sometimes it's easier to just not even tell them the truth. I'm not saying lie. I'm just saying say nothing. Okay, Leo and Mercury is sort of the charming speaker. This is a very, very confident placement. So think about who in your life has Mercury and Leo, and I bet you anything they are very inspiring. These people like to think and plan on a larger scale. They kind of like leaving the details to another person because they like being in the creative process of the conversation, like making things up, and they can read an audience, and they can read the audience's vibration towards them really easily, which can amp them up and give them more juice. So they really kind of need a little bit of an audience. I will tell you though, I think that there's a great organizational capability inside Mercury and Leos. They usually have a great voice, and they usually use it to perform. They can tell a great story. They can give a commanding speech. They can sing beautifully, and they're compelling. These are usually great performers, to be quite honest with you. And they are usually great at telling a good story. They can be very dramatic and even quite theatrical, and they can just draw you in. They sort of have a glow about them, and you kind of just sort of want to get close to them. It's sort of like they know how to create an admiration. I'd like to say they kind of are like Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I think they speak in Technicolor. They create compelling, vivid ideas, and they can bring them to life. They can make you feel and think what they feel and think. They are the creative conversationalists, and they like you, my audience, to be enraptured. I don't have this placement, but I am envious of it. I wish I did. These people are usually really inspiring, very motivating, and they are very entertaining, and they are super duper expressive. These people are usually not boring. I mean, do you know a boring Mercury and Leo? Unless they have Saturn, boom, sitting right on top of their Mercury. And it is important to know the aspects for Mercury. Did you guys watch my video where I showed you the aspects Mercury makes to the other planets? Because that dictates how your Mercury will be expressed. It is equally as important as to the sign in which your Mercury is in. So be sure to check out that video. You know, if you do have Saturn on top of your Mercury and it's in Leo, and all of this like drama is sort of stifled or oppressed, you just need to learn how to sort of shrug your Saturn off so your voice can be expressed to the degree that you desire it to be. This is usually a very convincing placement. This is like a good salesman. These people usually know how to get you to like them, to get you to admire them, and to get you wrapped around their finger, or to get you to do whatever they want you to do. This is a very convincing placement. However, the shadow side, I'll just tell you, when it's undeveloped or underdeveloped or not well developed, or when it's challenged, these people can really care about themselves and expressing their needs and seeing life only through their perspective and not having the ability to see your side. They are very fixed in their opinions, and they can be dogmatic like all the fire signs, and they can have a big sense of their thoughts and their speech and their opinions, and they can be seriously oblivious to you, missing all the cues around the room, and they can lose their objectivity, becoming so subjective that they can just like trample right over other people. Think of whether you like these people or not, just think of their power of speech and their power of communication. They also have a regalness about them. There is a little bit of an air of superiority, and sometimes it's well deserved. You know, sometimes it's like, put that crown on my head. Think of Barack Obama. Think of him when he was a senator before he ran for president of the United States. He gave such a great oratory speech that he just brought down the house, and people were like, who is that guy? That senator from Chicago. God, he should run for president. And then he did, and the rest is history. Anyways, he has a very Leo in Mercury style about the way he speaks. Think of J-Lo, total performer, beautiful voice, and think of Michael Jackson. While he's a little bit more quiet, think of the power of his voice, you know? So let's talk about Virgo. This placement is also in its dignity because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and so it functions really well, and it likes being here. This is a happy placement for Mercury. And this person has an eye for detail and lives in precision and has sort of a desire for perfection. So these people are just so highly analytical and so detail oriented that I think everybody benefits when you've got somebody in your life with a Mercury and Virgo person on your team or as your partner, because they're going to see all the tiny details that you don't see. And they are just fantastic at seeing all the pieces that other people miss. These people are realists. They have these big, giant brains, and they instinctively find all the problems, all the issues, and all the challenges that nobody else seems to think about. They're fantastic at improving situations or making things better. That's what they love to think about. How can I make this better? How can I do this better? How can I level this up? You know, these are the people that remember or even think about vacuuming the crumbs in between the cushions. You know, it's like they love useful data. They love making meaning out of life. They love finding the solutions. This is an aphrodisiac for them. They love discernment. So if you've got 7 spice beef, they love eating that beef, thinking about, what are the 7 spices? And the Sagittarius and Mercury is like, I don't care. It just tastes delicious. They love feeling purposeful. And so they can become addicted to trivia, to data, to solutions, to problem solving. And they are not half-assers. These people are like all the way in. They have such high focus. These are the ones that do their homework. Yes. So if you're in school and you need to borrow someone's notes, pick a Mercury and Virgo person. They're going to be meticulous. They find it fun being so smart and so organized. And they like having a mind that other people are kind of envious of. Yeah, they secretly like that. They love being smart, and they love being known for being so smart. They kind of like showing off how fast they can get the answer. They kind of like showing off that they got a 98 on their test. They do it with humility, but they kind of like you knowing. Yeah, they kind of like you knowing that they got a scholarship to Princeton. They pride themselves on their mind. They're proud of themselves that way. And they're humble, so they'll let you know in sort of a low-key way. Learning, I will tell you, with a Mercury and Virgo is a hobby. However, on the shadow side, these people can get so stuck in between the weeds that they forget what the big mission was. They forget, oh, we're taking the boat to Tahiti. I was just in the mechanics of getting the boat to run. And so they really can be just so focused on the weeds that they miss the fun, and they can really be workaholics. I'll tell you also, I think this placement, these people are highly anxious, high anxiety. And if they are not perfect, if they don't get the A, if they don't become the doctor, if they don't achieve their goal, if they're not successful, they are literally devastated, and they are so hard on themselves. They run on anxiety, and they get anxious if they appear dumb, or if they don't know the answer, or if they're called on, they say the wrong answer. I mean, they can literally go into anxiety tailspins. Do you have this placement? And do you have high anxiety? Can you relate to this? Can you guys relate to your Mercury sign? Tell me what your Mercury sign is, and tell me if you can relate to it. Now, Mercury is always going to be either in your sun sign or the sign before or the sign after. That's it. That's the only place it can be. If you're a Capricorn, but you have a Sagittarius Mercury, there's a little bit of conflict there. It's also, the contradiction makes you really complex and very unique. So tell me where your sun is and where your Mercury is. Virgos can be kind of tone deaf. They can be utterly critical, and they can also be kind of monotonous to listen to, especially if you, the listener, are not fascinated with teeny weeny details. And quite honest, the visionary types are going to be really probably quite bored with this person or this placement, but this placement is probably very, very beneficial and very good for those visionary types. Okay, so let's talk about Libra. Now, I don't have this placement either, but this is one of my very favorite placements. And if you guys are a Libra, I hope you will watch my entire Libra playlist, because I do think Libra is very misunderstood. And I talk a lot about the mind in my Libra videos, because the mind is really important. I think this sign is so interesting. I will call it the charming diplomat, the person who wants everything to be good and feel good. They are really quite fantastic communicators. The reason why I think Libra is so fascinating, especially in Mercury, is because I think these people both have both a really high IQ and a super high EQ. Why? Because they care about people. So Libras are really objective. What I like about them is they play chess with the mind. They're very analytical and poetic. And in one of my other Libra videos, I kind of think of these people as the chess player or the Rubik's Cube person, where they can see all the different sides. They are strategic thinkers. They play for strategic wins. Like, I want you to think of the social media guru, or the PR person, or the person who can set you up and communicate for you or with you for the win. So this placement is just really, really fascinating. And if you have a Mercury in Libra, I want you to tell me, what do you do for a living? And do you love your mind? These people usually really like their mind. They like the way they think. They think enough about themselves, but they usually think more about the mission, the cause, the animal, the other person, the other entity in the conversation. They are the great judge or jury, because they can be quite impartial. And there's a cool side to them. They're not overly mushy, but they are complimentary. You can see why I absolutely, utterly love this placement. They are usually very friendly. They are disarming. They are charming, and they are smart. They actually make everything kind of sound nice. Even if they're upset with you or mad at you, they will make that sound fair, reasonable, doable. Venus rules Libra, so this is a very kind placement, and they don't want to hurt people. And so sometimes they can agree even when they don't. They can sign up and say yes, even when they really mean no. And on the shadow side, this is probably the most passive-aggressive side that there is, because they bury their real preferences, and they can even be, when they're underdeveloped or when they're just young, kind of fake. And they can kind of lie just to make you feel good. Like they are not going to tell you that you look ugly, you know, in that color. They're not going to do it. They're not going to tell you, no, I really don't want to go on a second date with you in front of your face. They're passive aggressive. They'll just kind of ghost you because they can't bear to hurt feelings. They don't like to let people down. They don't like to say no. They cannot deal with conflict. And so that's why they're sort of passively aggressive. They bury their own preferences, their own needs, and they're afraid to lead with their ideas if it's going to be in conflict with yours or if it's going to make them feel uncomfortable. A lot of times they just don't want to be uncomfortable and deal with your reaction to them upsetting you. So they run away a lot. They can honestly sell out, letting other people have their way with them until one day they wake up and they're just like, screw this, I've had it. It's going to be more beneficial to me if I'm just direct. And if you are a Scorpio, having this might be kind of helpful. And if you're a Virgo, this kind of softens the edges. So I like this placement for Scorpio. I like this placement for Virgo, and I like this placement for Libra. But they struggle with making decisions too. Trying to figure out their truth, if their truth is kind of a negative truth or an ugly truth, is absolutely exhausting because they live in denial of the hard and ugly truth sometimes. Yeah, that's the hard part of Libra. But I think the blessings really outweigh the virtues, especially if the person is healthy. Okay, let's talk about Scorpio. Scorpio is very fascinating. This is the person. Are you ready? This is the person that will unzip you. Yeah. They will get you to reveal yourself. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they will. Trust me, they will disarm you while revealing very little about their own selves. They are cunning, they are sharp, and they are persistent until they get the answers they want. And they're kind of alluring and mysterious. Like you're not quite sure like what they think all the time. They're definitely not an open book. They live in the questioning. They are the perceptive questioner. Now they might be setting you up by asking you something way over here when really they want this answer over here, but that's just the setup. These people are in the psychology of life. They are constantly in the psychological analysis of life, and they want all the details, and they want the juicy, true details. They want the authentic and the real. And if you give them superficial answers, they will probe and probe and probe until they get the dirt. They are constantly trying to figure you out. They don't do superficial chit chat, and they want deep, meaningful, and most of all, penetrating conversations. They think about the deep. These people are on the bottom of the ocean floor. So you're going to have to be a little bit of a deeper thinker with these people. So while Leo is quite commanding and entertaining, if Leo in Mercury can't get deep, Scorpio can't go there. They're just not going to do superficial. They are also very passionate listeners, and they're good at details, and they're good at remembering details. They're interesting conversationalists and communicators. They love suspense. So like draw out your story a little bit, you know, to hook them in. They love listening to somebody or something that can create curiosity, like a murder mystery. They love playing the detective. These people are the detective, and they take very little at face value. Like they don't buy your bullshit. They have a bullshit radar that's really pretty fine-tuned, and they don't usually believe the mask. They can see beneath your pretty face. They can see what your motivations are and what your intentions are. And they don't trust very easily, although they might not reveal that to you. You might think that, because that's part of their disarming quality, you might think that they are just trusting you and buying your bullshit when on the inside they're just like, nope. So they can be very suspicious, and they can be quite cynical, and they can even be pessimistic, and they can even become, at their worst, I would say, paranoid. They can have a very sharp and even cruel tongue at times, and they can be very cutting and insulting to people, not even knowing, just like Aries, how much their words can hurt other people. They can be too intense and too honest, and they can really overwhelm other people with their honesty, and they can live in these extremes of like all or nothing. They are usually quite interesting people. Hillary Clinton had this placement. I find that interesting. Ted Bundy had this placement. Julia Roberts had this placement. Very interesting. Snoop Dogg has this placement. Walt Disney had this placement. Stranger Things, Winona Ryder also has this placement. You can kind of see why her and Johnny Depp were a couple. She has that depth, and she is really deep. She oftentimes plays such disturbing, psychologically disturbing characters, doesn't she? And you can also see it in Julia Roberts because she's so private. She seems so open and so charming and disarming, but she is very, very private. I also want to say Mercury and Scorpios usually have this quite interesting way of sort of saying shocking things. They kind of can have like a shock jock. It's sort of like a shock jock meets a bloodhound meets a detective, right? And so they're also really keen observers, looking like they are like innocently just sipping on the punch in the corner of the dinner party, right? Or the cocktail party. But no, these people have X-ray vision, and they're actually seeing and observing what color your underwear is underneath those tight jeans. They have X-ray vision. So let's talk about Mercury and Sagittarius. So these are the big talkers. These people are very convincing, and they usually are fun to talk to and fun to listen to. And they are the visionary. They are the big thinker. They are the idealist. And let me tell you, these people are usually very cosmopolitan. They're the global thinkers. They're worldly wise. And they're usually just like wide open, big minds. They love learning, they love pontificating, they love teaching, and they love telling colorful, fun, exotic, wild, fun stories. They're interesting. And while this position is considered in detriment, I think in truth, they are usually so much fun and such fascinating communicators. They usually have really strong convictions and opinions, and they have this great ability and power to just get people. They get people also on board and convinced around whatever they're saying. This is the preacher from the pulpit, right? This is the cheerleader starting the chant from the crowd. This is the person, the loud person in the back row yelling woohoo or whistling. Yeah. This is the person who can get the crowd to be excited and rumble. This can also be the person who does those really loud plays, like they can call the game, the baseball game or the football game. I also want you guys to know that this is usually a very funny and good humored person that will make you laugh. And there's also this like inspirational, motivational life coach speaker quality to them. They usually make you feel good about yourself. They are good at restoring your faith in life and people and humanity. And they're good at giving you confidence and sprinkling like fairy dust on you. So you just walk away feeling so damn good about yourself. There's this underlining wisdom to them too. And I think that they are masterful at telling truth through humor. So the shadow side is pretty big. Let me just tell you. Do you guys know anybody with Sagittarius and Mercury? And are they arrogant a-holes? They can be the biggest arrogant, conceited, pompous asses of the zodiac. If they have Mercury and Sagittarius, they can be just know-it-alls. And while they're mutable, they stick to their beliefs, and they kind of want to indoctrinate you into drinking their Kool-Aid. And they can be too blunt and too truthful, and at times too patronizing and too condescending and too superior. And they can like reign supreme. And they can also be on their high horse and just be flat out hypocrites. And they can lie. They can be big fat liars. That's when they are undeveloped, when they didn't have a good role model in their life for like honest communication. They can be the rousing preacher teacher that says, do not have sex before marriage, only to have sex before marriage. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm exhausting myself on Mercury and Sagittarius. Oh, okay, you guys. So Capricorn, let's talk about Capricorn. This is like the straightforward, down to earth communicator. They don't want to fabricate. They are usually very no nonsense, very truthful thinker and talker and communicator, and they're good listeners. They like the facts. They like the details, and they like to be well researched before they speak. You know, they're very precise. They usually come across with a great authority that's kind of calm, cool, and collected. Let me bring my energy down from Sagittarius. They have a lot of concentration in their minds. They work their checklists. They like to build systems and structures. They like cohesiveness. They like to cover all their bases. They like to think things through. They're slower and more methodical. They're usually very, very sharp. They're usually good test takers. They're usually usually well rehearsed, well researched, and they're really capable of taking super complex situations or ideas and boiling those ideas down to the nuts and bolts and staying on task, staying on point. And they are usually not scattered. They are not high anxiety, but they have a high focus, and they aim to be seen inside communication and conversation as an authority, as somebody who is successful, as somebody who is good at what they do, as somebody who is knowledgeable, and they want respect. And they usually do this through precision. They are usually quite authoritative and commanding, and they usually find themselves in a position of leading or guiding or teaching. However, they can be very dry and very boring and very monotone, speaking in such harsh facts or strong facts, like the mathematical equation to, that they can add like no color, or there's no fever in their conversation. They can really lack emotion. They can feel cool, aloof, detached, kind of bossy, kind of like drill sergeanting. Get down and give me 10 push-ups. Nope, you only gave me 9. I said 10. They can be a little bit bossy. They do like to be in a position of authority and bossiness. And they would be great at talking about the stock market or this exacting thing, the accounting process. They are very accountable, though. They would like talking about the business design of a company. People can really tune them out if they only talk about the monotonous details. And I will tell you, they do lean a little bit towards the realistic or the pessimistic side of life. On the shadow side, they can just sound like a want, what's not working properly, what's not working right, how this isn't successful. Do you like my Capricorn and Mercury impression? Tell me if you know somebody like this. And now you have to take the whole context of the chart into account. You guys know that you have to look at all of the signs of all of the planets, and you can start doing that right here on my Soul Navigation channel. And if you don't know where to start, just go to my website, soulnavigation.com, and click the shop tab and get yourself the starter package. And if you've already done that and you're more advanced, then get my Astro Gold package and start looking at your progressions and the rulers in your chart. So the starter package and the Advanced Astro Gold package are two great ways in which you can enrich yourself into astrology. So now I want to kind of blow this all to bits. Think of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She played Elaine on Seinfeld, and she's somebody who just blows all this to bits because she has Capricorn and Mercury in real life, and she is so funny, and she is hilarious, and she is the Sun, Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter in Capricorn. So I think Jupiter really helps lighten her Capricorn up, and she also has a Sagittarius moon, so she is really, really funny. Okay, Mercury in Aquarius is really an interesting placement. I think this is the brilliant mind. This is a very imaginative placement in kind of a cool way. I wouldn't say this is passionate. I think these people have a very detached and objective, able, like Libra and Gemini, to be very, very open-minded, to be willing to see things a little bit differently, and they are the original mind, the open mind. They are capable of going where other people have never been before. They can think of the unthinkable. They're massively brilliant and bright and creative. There is a depth inside a Mercury in Aquarius because they can go into the pockets of life that haven't been thought of before. And that's where there's this vast knowledge and vast imagination. They take a high level approach, but they're also kind of good at the analytics. And I would also say that they're very good at statistics. They're very good at seeing and understanding trends. I would say that they are abstract thinkers, and they probably like to think about sociology, technology, people, humanity. They are strategic thinkers, and they are extraordinarily the most tolerant of people other than themselves, of people who think differently from them. They will be very hard to indoctrinate into a sect or a society or a certain belief system because they don't want to be closed off from options. There's an intuition meets instincts. So they blend intuition and instinct. Do you have this placement? Are you kind of zany and quirky? And is your sense of humor a little bit offbeat? These people are offbeat. They're off color, off beat, and very, very unique. They are not built to go with the consensus. They are built sort of to think outside of the box, go their own direction. They are a little bit of a lone wolf. They're not just going to get on board with what society says to do. No. I will also say that these people, more than any other sign, have these flashes of brilliance, these flashes of brilliant downloads, and things can just fly out of their mouth for reasons they don't even know that are like the answer to life's biggest questions. And they like thinking about large scale things. They like thinking about life in a grand scale. They can miss the nuances. They can miss the emotional cues. They can be like too insensitive when the moment required great sensitivity. Although it's not crass or cruel, it's just they didn't catch it. They didn't see that emotional need and react to it in the way that the person wished they would have. That is their shadow side, where the other person who is receiving them can feel that there is an emotional vacancy at times with these people, and they can come across a little bit scattered or on the surface, disconnected, and maybe even at times kind of a smart ass because they're so smart. These people can be overly intellectual. I mean, they can understand like aerospace design and want to talk about that at the dinner party where the Mercury and Cancer person is just like, oh my gosh, do you like your job? Is your job fulfilling? And they want to talk about, aerospace engineering and all the components of that, or human design. I will tell you, a Mercury in Aquarius person is usually riveting, fascinating, smart. They can flex. They can meet you where you're at because they have that kind of open-mindedness. You also can feel very, very accepted. So if you are somebody who has something hard to say, or you have a hard truth that you're trying to grapple with and you don't quite know how to do it, ask your Mercury and Aquarius person because they are so non-judgmental. But I will tell you that there is a side to them that can feel like they're staying on the surface even while they're talking about deep things, because they don't communicate from, not at first, they don't communicate from an emotional place. They communicate from a rational, reasonable place, and they like it that way. Okay, let's bring it home with Pisces. Pisces, is the poetic, intuitive communicator. They communicate with deep, deep feeling. They can sort of speak in hyperbole or fantasy or poetry. They can remember the lyrics to songs. They could even be the songwriter. They usually have a very melodic, soft, beautiful, warm-hearted voice. They usually have a voice that is very soft on your nerves. And there is something quite sensual, beautiful, loving, and lovely about their voice. These people can have the voice of an angel, if you will. Elizabeth Taylor had this. Very famous 1950s film star. You guys probably know her. Lady Gaga has this. Celine Dion has this. Justin Timberlake has this. Look, those are all singers. I mean, this is a songbird. And these people are usually very deep, very soulful. They ask life's fantastic questions. They live in the fantastical, the mystical, the magical. These people usually want to talk about magic and miracles, the soul, love, beauty, poetry, harmony, God, the divine. There is so much intuition that they have kind of a brilliance about them that is intuitive. It's like they live in a knowing. These people are not always book smart, but they know how to read a room, and they very rarely miss a beat, miss a cue, because they are dialed into all things, and they come from a perspective of we are all one. So while they are talking about their feelings, they can read what your feelings are, and yours and yours and yours and yours. They can pick up on the collective vibration, but they can also pick up on the individual vibration too. I will tell you that sometimes being a Mercury in Pisces is very difficult. And the reason why is because they can honestly pick up your preference over their own preference, and then they can chameleon into your preference. Like Libra, they can people please. They absolutely abhor conflict. They cannot stand it. Kurt Cobain also ironically has this, and he had a lot of dissonance and discord and even anger and pent up frustration. But inside, I think he was such a loving soul. I think he was too sensitive for the planet. And when I saw a lot of his private interviews on YouTube, I found that his sensitivity was just so raw, and it made him frustrated and angry with the harsh realities of the world. Pisces and Mercury can become quite depressed. I also thought it was fascinating that Lady Gaga, suffered almost for a full year after she did the movie House of Gucci, because her character was so friggin' disturbing to her. It disturbed her so badly. She couldn't get out of character, and she walked around with an Italian accent for months after she finished the character. I just found that very, very interesting. So Pisces can absorb all of the hurts and all of the sufferings in the world and hold on to them. While they can be extremely melodious communicators and be a vessel of love inside the giving and receiving of communication, they can also get really overwhelmed, and they can suffer from really severe depression. They can stay in la la land, fantasy island land, because reality is just too damn hard. Earth school is really painful at times. I think if you have a Mercury in Pisces, and tell me if this is true, it's very difficult to watch the news. This war in Ukraine is just horrifying for all of us. But if you're a Mercury in Pisces, it's just like, oh my God, bury my head in the sand. I can't even look. It's just too painful. A Mercury in Pisces speaks in great metaphors. They will convey their feelings through metaphor, or giving you the picture, giving you the feeling of what they are thinking. So I should say they will convey their thoughts through feelings. And they are so intuitive. This is like the most intuitive. Virgo is their opposite. So Virgo runs on high anxiety. I think Pisces can run on depression and sadness and gloom and doom and get overwhelmed that way and just sink within themselves. They have to be alone. Not all Pisces, Mercury and Pisces, are introverts, but they do need a great amount of time to just check out, to seal themselves off and go within. So if you're involved with a Mercury in Pisces, let me know. I want to know, what is your Mercury sign, and what is your favorite person's Mercury sign? And then I also would love to know, what is your partner's Mercury sign, and do your Mercuries go together? It's okay if they don't. My Mercury sign and my partner's Mercury sign are in square aspect in one another. It works because there is a respect, and there's a kindness, and there's a depth. So squares and oppositions are not always a bad thing. Is your mind one that kind of likes a little bit of a challenge, or do you need to sort of swim with the dolphins and not have a lot of conflict around communication, like Pisces? Pisces and Cancers and Tauruses and Libras, they do not thrive on combative questioning and combative challenges. It's painful for them. I hope you guys love this. There's just so much information in this. Go back and watch the signs of your favorite people and leave me a comment or a question. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. Help me push this out, would you all? And please like and subscribe. I would be so grateful, and I can't wait for my next video, seeing you always here Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Take good care, and I wish you the very, very best.